Hello everybody, and welcome to RPG Horror Stories. I'm Firestar, and I hope that you enjoy your stay. Our first horror story is titled My DM Sucks, posted by u/Brenman5000. This is a vent from a player with a terrible DM. First of all, our DM makes us roll for everything. You know XP to Level 3's parody video of DMs making PCs roll for everything? I didn't think it was possible, but my character had to use the bathroom after eating spicy food, and my DM made me roll. I rolled a 13 and got rewarded with 2 levels of exhaustion. Second of all, at level 1, our party of 5 rolled an encounter which led to 4 waves of 12 serpent people attacking our tiny boat. It was a total TPK, and new characters had to get rolled. 1 session passed with the new characters, and another encounter was rolled. It ended up being 2 giant rats with 17 AC each who could shoot spells, rage, and deal permanent necrotic damage that took away from our total hit points. Yet another hard reset, and we walked out after. Now, for those who might not know, exhaustion is not something to be taken lightly in the D&D sphere, and rarely does it come up, at least in the games that I've played, but 2 levels of exhaustion. For the first level, you would have disadvantage on any ability checks, which overall is not too bad if you can sleep it off right after, because exhaustion levels end up going back down by 1 for every long rest that you have. But at second level of exhaustion, your speed gets halved, so if you have 30 feet of movement speed per round, you now only have 15 feet, so if you end up in an encounter where you need to run away, you are screwed. And not only that, but it would take 2 long rests in total to get rid of that exhaustion. If you're playing by the rules or by homebrew rules, you probably won't be allowed to just have those long rests at the same exact time. So you're going to be stuck with at least 1 level of exhaustion. On to our second horror story. This one is titled, Our GM Isn't a Fan of Short Kings, I Guess. This was posted by u/RedHotOwl. Consider this story a little palate cleanser from some of the truly horrific ones I've read on here recently. It's not something that I've lost sleep over, but I would be lying if I said stuff like this didn't make me hesitate to fully dive into the world of D&D as a player. As most of you, I have also been regularly no-lifing Baldur's Gate 3 ever since it came out in early access, and it sparked my interest in joining an actual D&D session. I figured that it would do me good to broaden my social circle a little as well, since I've pretty much been talking to the same couple of people for the past 3 to 4 years. Now, for someone like me with chronic anxiety issues, putting myself out there and actively looking for a group is already a huge step out of my comfort zone, coupled with the fact that, while I'm confident in my storytelling abilities, I'm still pretty green when it comes to game mechanics. I figured the easiest way to learn would be for me to just take the plunge and join a game, so I ended up finding a group on Discord that, at first glance, appeared to be exactly what I was looking for. It was beginner-friendly, primarily EU-based, LGBTQ+ friendly, and a good balance between combat and RP, all that good stuff. Not only that, but they were seemingly cool with teaching me as we went. With Session 0 scheduled for the upcoming weekend, the GM asked that I pick a race, gave me a list of still available classes, and told me to come up with a backstory. Since it's my first time, I decided not to overthink it and went with a halfling ranger. In chat, everybody was talking about how excited they were for the weekend and discussing their characters. Most seemed to be playing some variation of an elf or other conventionally attractive race. The reason why that's relevant is because when the GM asked me what I would be playing, the reaction I got was completely different. Basically something along the lines of, a halfling? Ew, why? They're fugly as hell. Mind you, this was the GM and owner of the server telling me this, not just some other random player. I asked her what that had to do with anything, and she said that no NPC would be interested in a character like mine and advised that I change it. Apparently a character's worth is entirely dependent on how bangable they are, and in her eyes, not making an attractive character was almost seen as weird. Like, if given the option, why wouldn't you? I said that I could change my character, she insists, but I thought that we were playing D&D, not a dating sim. And for the record, I have no issues with people running whatever type of game they want, but nothing about the server's vibe indicated that it was that kind of game. Hell, some of the flavor images they used had halflings in them. Things were just awkward after that. I guess when she realized that we weren't on the same wavelength, she basically ignored me and didn't seem excited at showing me the ropes anymore, even though I offered to make a new character. I got the hint and left shortly after, and haven't bothered searching for a group since then. Now that is an unfortunate introduction to D&D. Having been on the RPG Horror Stories subreddit and other similar communities, I have heard of a lot worse, and I'm sure that everyone has their own horror stories of getting into D&D. I know I do as well, but it's a shame that you have to be introduced to things like this. Because at the end of the day, Dungeons & Dragons is a fantasy game, so if you want it to be conventionally attractive people running around, that's perfectly fine. I mean, arguably, Baldur's Gate 3 is exactly that. But if you're going to run a game and not announce that this is what you want, then really you shouldn't be upset when someone decides to make a character that they think is cool. Our third horror story is titled Homophobic DM Converting My Character, posted by u/JamesWildland. I'm fairly new to D&D and went to a local gaming store to meet up with people to play with. After some mingling and socializing, there was a group that was welcoming new players, and I joined their Discord to do a Session 0 for their campaign. My character is a human warrior, a simple character that should be a good starter. His backstory that I sent to the DM included that he was a gay aristocrat who wanted to shed off the high society life and take up a life of adventure and roughing it, with odd jobs, bounties, and whatever he could find. It seemed to me like a nice motivation to get together with a ragtag team of adventurers to go on an epic quest. But I also mentioned his sexuality wasn't really relevant, and that I was more interested in adventure and combat. I just made him gay so that way I could relate to him more. The DM agreed and said that his backstory could also help with potential aristocratic connections if the group needed it, which I hadn't thought of when I made the character, so was pretty excited for the potential that my character could add to the sessions. The first few sessions went great. We did a few quests that led us through some small towns. The first red flags that I didn't notice at the time were that my DM had barmaids at the taverns who would flirt with my character. I would turn them down just to focus on getting to know my party members more, and the encounters were seemingly harmless, but my character was the only one of the four of us that the DM decided to target with attention from the woman. Fast forwarding to the big city, this is where things got very uncomfortable. We had a job from a nobleman who was being blackmailed by a brothel. The nobleman had information that we needed to progress the main story, and would give it to us in addition to gold if we could get rid of that blackmail. So, we head over to the brothel where we speak with the headmistress. She tells us that she needs the income from the blackmail because she can't afford the protection fees from a local gang. We as a group decide to take out the gang leader for her so that she can give us the blackmail, and after we defeat the gang leader and free the brothel mistress from her protection fees, we try to get it, but the DM decides that the mistress is adding a new condition. She wants to spend the night with my character. The other players laughed and thought it was some silly twist that I was dealt, but I wasn't interested in my gay character being coerced into sex with the mistress. I wasn't interested in romantic or sexual side quests in general, but the DM threw it my way anyway. I have my character turn her down and roll a persuasion check to just get her to honor the original agreement and succeed. The DM says, yeah, that works, but his tone of voice sounded like he didn't like my character doing that. The mistress gives us the blackmail and we return to the nobleman. We give him his blackmail and assure him that the mistress won't trouble him anymore. But before giving us the information we need to progress the story, the nobleman invites us to dinner in celebration of the service we gave him. At dinner, the conversation brings up my character's aristocratic upbringing, and the nobleman decides that he wants to marry his daughter to my character because his family will benefit from my family's connections, and the United House will provide us with more resources for our quest. At this point, I'm getting irritated. This is the second time in the session that my character was getting pressured into getting intimately involved with a woman. I turned down the nobleman, and he gets angry that I dishonored his house with my refusal. The DM is strongly hinting that I have to do this in order to keep on good terms with the noble house, and the other players offer to marry the daughter instead, but the DM insists that it has to be my character since the nobleman won't tolerate my refusal. I insist that I'm not marrying her, and the nobleman kicks us out of his house and refuses to pay us for retrieving the blackmail, and refuses to give us the information that we need to continue the story. This is when the session ends, and the DM is visibly irritated at my discussions, saying he would now have to do a lot of rewriting and shuffling around in order for the next session to work. I asked the DM, "You do remember my character is gay, right?" To which he dismissed it with, "There aren't any gay bars in the story," which I thought was weird and not what I was asking. We sort of laugh it off and call it a day. In the Discord, I asked the DM why my character was being forced to get with women constantly, and he told me that my character didn't need to be gay in a fantasy situation, and that he was trying to correct it, and was just expecting me to retcon my character's sexuality through various flirting women, and hoping I would just go with it. I tell him that I'm not changing my character's sexuality just because he doesn't like it for his story, and that's when he tells me that I didn't need to come back to the sessions anymore, because he wasn't going to add some gay orgy for my character to get into. That really upset me because I had emphasized that I only wanted to adventure and fight monsters. My character's sexuality wasn't crucial to the story, but it was important that it stayed as it was for me. And I never went back. And good for you, as you shouldn't. You should stick your ground and just worry about being happy and being yourself, because honestly, people like your DM sound like the worst kind of people. And someone in the comments says it best. I swear gay people don't think about gay sex as much as homophobes do. This is our fourth horror story, titled, My DM Keeps Misgendering My Character and Putting Them in Weird Situations, and I'm Thinking of Leaving After One Session. This was posted by u/artistic abracadabra. A couple of weeks ago, my long-term D&D group went on break, and a friend of mine set me up to join a campaign she was playing with some friends of hers. I'll call her Hexblade because that's what she was playing. Now, I'm acquainted with everyone in this group, but Hexblade is the one I know best, and the DM is the one that I know the least. I am non-binary, and I play mostly non-binary characters, and this campaign was no different for me. With the DM's instructions, I rolled up a level 7 character, a half-elf artificer, sketched up some art of them, and sent it over to the DM. He asked some questions about my character's backstory using she/her pronouns for them, and referred to them as a lady and a chick. I explained that my character isn't female and then answered his questions. He said that he understood, but I noticed that he conspicuously avoided using pronouns for my character and stuck to using their name for the rest of the conversation, even when the repetition got unwieldy. I did have a bad feeling about it, but I had already committed to at least one session and wanted to give the DM a chance in person because maybe he just texted weird. Yesterday was our first session, and after a quick introduction, we got to playing. The first 10 or so minutes were spent with the current party coming into town and going to the pub where my character was, and the DM described my character tinkering while sipping on their drink and showed the rest of the players the sketch that I'd sent him. In this narration, he again used she/her, and I again corrected him while trying to phrase it as a friendly reminder, but I'm not sure how I came off because he sounded a little annoyed when he went on with his narration. I also did this to let the rest of the party know, because I drew my character fairly androgynous, and I understand if someone would assume that they were female just by appearance. My character joined up with the party, and play continued. At one point, the party had an interaction with the city guards, basically fantasy TSA in the setting, where we were asked to split by gender for a pat-down. In my head, I'm like, what am I supposed to do here, dude? Because I wasn't going to just pick a line, as the DM said in character as an NPC, but I also didn't want to make trouble for the party by fighting with the guards. In the end, I convinced the guards to let me pass without a pat-down using a lucky-as-hell persuasion check, and waited for the party on the other side of the checkpoint. I was more than a little miffed at this point, because I do not play D&D just to have to deal with the same bullshit that I do IRL, but I tried giving the DM the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he already had this encounter planned before I joined and for some reason couldn't change it, or maybe he was planning on having my character initiate combat. Anyway, we kept playing, and at the end, our party got invited to a fancy party hosted by the Duke whose province we had saved. The DM read out the whole invitation, and placed emphasis on the strict dress code, which had stipulations for both men and women, and the DM warned us that if we broke the dress code, there could be trouble. The rest of the party went on a fun mini-quest to find fancy clothes while I sat wondering what the hell my character was supposed to do. When it came to my turn to pick out clothes, I basically said fuck it, and described how my character picked out a flamboyant suit with platform combat boots. The DM asked if I was sure about that because the dress code specified dresses for women. At this point, I kinda snapped and said, "Artificer isn't a woman. How many times do I have to say that before it gets through your thick skull? If you weren't cool with me playing a non-binary character, you should have just said so at the start, and it would have saved us both a lot of time." Then the DM backed off and ended the session without going to the actual party, which the other players seemed a little annoyed about. After the session, I talked to Hexblade about everything, and she said that this was the DM's first time running a game with a non-binary character and that he was probably still getting used to it, and she promised to talk to him about it. Other than my frustration with the DM, the session was actually super fun. The party was awesome, and I kinda want to go back for a second session, especially if Hexblade manages to convince him to shape up, but at the same time I really don't want to put up with another session of the same. I haven't played a lot outside of my usual group, and we've all known each other since forever. Is this kind of thing normal? And would I be overstepping if I asked the DM not to put my character in any more of these situations where their gender is a problem or obstacle? I don't know what to do here, and I feel like I'm in over my head. Personally, I don't think that you should have to put up with this at all, because how you identify and how your character identifies is no one else's business, and they can just respect you and your pronouns without making a big deal of these random gendered scenarios, which frankly don't seem very normal to me. At least, personally, I haven't dealt with a lot of scenarios in the D&D games that I've played where we've had to be, like, separated by gender. It's very bizarre. And as another comment puts it, I would be willing to give the benefit of the doubt if not for 2 different situations where gender differentiating was forced in. It is not hard to do a TSA checkpoint without organizing people by gender. And hell, the real TSA doesn't even force people to segregate by gender. The party thing also doesn't need gender differentiating. I have seen countless instances of balls and parties where the DM and in-game partygoers don't give a shit what you're wearing as long as it's fancy enough. Plus the fact that he ended the session abruptly tells me that he didn't expect backlash. At best, this guy didn't know how to deal with a non-binary character, so he decided to play around to test boundaries. And at worst, he's trying to force you and your character to pick a side. So he keeps making scenarios that pressures you into choosing. You were able to use gameplay to get out of one, and he created another one that couldn't be solved by a die roll. So when you snapped at him out of character, he didn't know how to react and bailed. This isn't normal. He's oblivious at best and actively undermining at worst. I don't know the group, so it's up for you to decide if you want to tolerate it, but it's definitely not a coincidence, nor is it entirely accidental. And they put it very well. It's not hard to respect the people that you're playing with, or the pronouns or gender that they want to go by or have their characters go by. I mean, hell, I've played plenty of different genders of characters and messed around with different things, and even if my party forgets sometimes, because I don't really do a voice if I'm doing a male character, or like make it super obvious that my character is using certain pronouns, but if I correct them, they do their best to usually use those pronouns and respect that I want to play a different gender than what I go by in real life. Anyways, that will do it for our first episode of RPG Horror Stories. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good one.